Good afternoon and welcome to MOS Live. My name is Sarah, my pronouns are she and her, and today I will be your moderator with this live animal show called Blue in Nature. Thank you for everyone who is tuning in today. If you are on Facebook or YouTube, unfortunately, we can't get your questions and comments from there. But if you're joining us on Zoom, feel free to use that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions that you have. If you would like a shout out, don't forget to leave your name and age. If you'd like to see closed captions, you can press the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen and select show captions. So now I would like to invite my first educator and animal friend to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Liz. I'm the assistant curator in the Live Animal Center. With me today is Corey, our invertebrate keeper. And welcome to our live animal show titled Blue in Nature. So as you may have imagined, we will be introducing you to 3 blue animals today. I'm actually going to start with a native New England animal that is blue. Let you guys kind of think about that for a moment as to what you think it may be. Then Corey is going to introduce you to an animal that is no longer alive, but she will tell you a little bit more about the color blue in nature, the science behind that. And then finally, we were going to wrap up the show with a very special blue animal. So wait for that till the end. All right, so without further ado, if you're thinking about a blue animal native to this area, I'm guessing probably most of you are thinking of the animal that Corey is now going to reveal. All right, so certainly when I think of blue animals in this area, I definitely think of blue jays. Number one thing that I think of. Now, blue jays are a very recognizable bird. Honestly, when I was a little kid and I had a hard time with bird identification, this is probably one of the few that I was able to accurately identify. So I'd like to give a quick history on this specific blue jay. A lot of times people are surprised that we have a blue jay here at the museum. Now, this is a relatively young bird. He's only about 8 months old. We've had him at the museum for about 4 months. He was actually found as a young orphaned baby, too young to take care of himself. He was taken in by someone called a wildlife rehabilitator. This is someone who is trained and licensed to take care of injured or orphaned wildlife. So they fed him, they got him nice and healthy. When he was at the point that he could be released, they realized that he was very imprinted. Imprinting is when an animal fixates on humans as being like themselves. So he doesn't really understand that he's a blue jay. He wouldn't really know how to go about taking care of himself on his own out in the wild. And he's very interested in people. So for that reason, it was determined he was going to need to live with people for his entire life. Now he has a nice, important job here at the museum as an animal ambassador. I also like to quickly point out that he does not live in this case that you're seeing him in right now. This is a really good presentation style for him. He gets to do some activities in there, and you guys can get a really nice view of him. Lastly, I should point out that this is our Blue Jays' first show. You guys are the first audience meeting him, so you should consider yourselves very lucky. Now, blue jays in the wild are a pretty common bird. You can find them in eastern and central United States. Now, they do live in a variety of different forested habitats. So they're really not too picky in terms of where they live. They do tend to prefer forest edges. So you're not going to find them right in the midst with lots and lots of trees in the middle of the forest, but they do prefer those edges. With that being said, they have also adapted really well to human habitats. So it's not uncommon to find blue jays even in your own backyard in urban and suburban areas. So they have not been overly affected by deforestation or cutting down of those forests because they have been able to adapt. Now, blue jays belong to a family of birds known as corvids. Some of you may have not heard that term corvid before, but I'm guessing you probably are familiar with some other kinds of corvids. Crows and ravens are corvids. So those are relatives of blue jays. Now, typical characteristics of corvids, they tend to be extremely intelligent and extremely curious. Actually, crows were the first animal other than primates that were observed modifying tools in the wild. So what that means is they would take a device and change it, bend it or change the shape, and use it to then get a hold of something they wanted. Before that, scientists thought primates were the only ones capable of doing that. So they are extremely intelligent. Blue jays have not been observed modifying tools in the wild, but they have in captivity. So that's pretty fascinating. Another thing blue jays are well known for is they do tend to be pretty aggressive towards other birds. I think it just adds to their charm a little bit, the fact that they're a little feisty, but it's not uncommon for blue jays to kind of show that they're in charge at a bird feeder, kind of push other birds out of the way. So they are definitely pretty feisty animals. Another thing blue jays are really good at is mimicking other birds. They are excellent mimics. Blue jays are well known for mimicking a specific bird, actually a raptor or bird of prey, called a red-shouldered hawk. So they have their noise pretty much down. What they often will do is they will imitate that red-shouldered hawk. Other songbirds in the area will hear it and they'll think that it's a predator. They'll think the hawk is coming after them. And then a lot of times those birds will flee. And then the blue jay is able to get at whatever food they were going for. So it's actually pretty clever. Our blue jay here does not really hear red-shouldered hawk calls in our live animal center, but he has pretty quickly mastered lots of our other bird noises. So he is an excellent mimic. The first one he learned was our barn owl call. He learned that call very quickly, and he regularly calls back and forth with our barn owl. And he is slowly adding to his repertoire and learning the other birds that we have in the live animal center. So we are just curious to see as to what sounds he comes up with next. Now, I've mentioned going after food a couple times. Blue jays are omnivores, so they will eat a lot of nuts, seeds, but they will go after insects and even sometimes small vertebrates if they're able to come across that. So they're really not too picky. Now, I did give our blue jay plenty of mealworms as a snack in this little display case. I think he's found most of the mealworms. I have a few other treats hidden in there that he does not seem quite as interested in just yet, but maybe you'll get a chance to see him eat while you're watching him. Now, I see we already have a lot of questions, so why don't I turn it over to some of those?
Yes, we do. All right, the first question that many people have asked, but Aiden, age 3, did as well. Does this blue jay have a name?
He does have a name. I know I wanted to wait to reveal it because I think it's a pretty perfect name, both for this animal and definitely for our theme today. His name is Cobalt. And like I said, our estimate is he is about 8 months old. So he's still very young. Blue jays in captivity living with people haven't been known to live over 20 years. So they can be pretty long-lived. Definitely, they're not going to live quite as long in the wild. It's hard to survive when you are a bird like this size. Lots of different things could potentially eat him.
Right. A lot of people are also asking, is it a male or a female? How do you tell the difference between a male and female?
This one is a male. It's not the easiest to tell the difference. Males tend to be larger than females, but that's a little hard to tell because you could be looking at particularly big female. Oftentimes with birds, you have to go inside their bodies. So we do know that this one is a male, but it is pretty tricky to tell. It's not that obvious. There's no color difference.
All right, Jacob, age 5, asks, are blue jays the same as red jays or black crows?
So they're not the same thing, but I believe those animals that were referenced are other corvids. So it's the same family of birds. all jays are in that corvid family. And then definitely crows, as I mentioned before, are in that corvid family. So you could sort of think of them as cousins of one another.
Bryson, age 8, asks, how frequently do they molt?
So he actually has yet to molt since he's lived with us here in the Live Animal Center. Typically birds molt annually. So I guess we'll have to stay tuned with Cobalt. I've actually never taken care of a blue jay before, so he could be a little bit different than the birds of prey I'm used to taking care of. But typically it's at least annually that they will molt their feathers.
Maddie, age 9, asks, why is there paper in the shelter?
So since I mentioned that blue jays are really intelligent, we have to come up with lots of different things to keep him busy, to keep his mind active. So some of the things that you're seeing in that enclosure that he's in are just my way to keep him busy. The specific paper towel that you're seeing, I actually hid some food kind of as little packets. Like I said, I didn't hide his favorite food in those, so he's not that excited in ripping them open. But those are just different ways for me to keep him excited and active while he's in there.
All right, well, we have a ton of questions, but we have some other animals to get to. So I am going to share my screen of some facts about our blue jay, and hopefully that will answer some of the questions that you all have. So here's more about the location, the food, the lifespan, and some cool facts.
And Sarah, I think we are ready whenever you are.
All right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Corey. I'm the invert keeper here at the museum. And as you guys just saw, our beautiful blue jay, we're going to dive in a little bit to the science behind blue. Because blue is like one of people's favorite colors. We see it all over, right? It's in the sky, it's our oceans, it's all around. And I bet if I could see all of your beautiful faces right now and ask you what was the color of the bird you just saw, you would say, well, that's a silly question. It was blue. Well, I'm here to tell you it is not blue. That blue jay that you just saw is tricking you. It's actually how the light is coming in and hitting its feathers that's causing it to look blue. So I'm going to have Liz show us our next animal. So this is called a common Morpho butterfly. This butterfly used to be alive. It is not alive anymore. Butterflies live for about 2 weeks on average when they're adults. So here at the museum, when we did have butterflies, once they would pass away, we actually try to reuse them as much as we can for education. And our blue Morpho butterfly is a great example of being fooled by blue. Because again, if I could see all of your beautiful faces and say, what color is this butterfly? You say, well, again, that's a silly question. It's blue. But again, it is not. It is how the light is coming in, refracting off of the scales on the butterfly's wings. And then what we are seeing is that beautiful blue color. And that is almost every single type of blue that we see on our planet. So a good example is if you think of a body of water. So if you look at the ocean, it's blue, right? But if you just took a cup and you dipped it into the water, it would just be clear. So again, it's how light is coming in and refracting off of the water, the feathers, the scales that are giving us these beautiful blue colors. Same with blue flowers. So blue flowers use different pigments to mix them together to make that beautiful blue color that we see. And one reason for this is blue is a really high energy color. So for a plant, if your leaves were blue, that means you're not absorbing the blue color. You're not absorbing all that energy. And that's why we see the green color that we see on leaves. So you may be thinking, I'm telling you all these things, but how can you believe what I'm saying? And as a museum of science, we always have to follow through with an experiment to show you guys what we're talking about, because you just shouldn't just believe me because I'm saying it. So Liz is now, and Liz only has 2 hands, and this is a 4-handed job. So the camera might be a little shaky, But Liz is actually going to take our blue Morpho Butterfly and she's going to place it over a light. And you can actually see through the wing. And we are seeing the other side of the wing that has a brown pigment to it. So those scales are disappearing because they're actually clear and not blue. So Liz, if you want to actually flip the butterfly all the way over so we can see the brown side, and see those nice eye spots. Yeah, perfect. So this is showing us that the light is coming in and bouncing off. So there is only 1% of animals on our planet that actually have a true blue pigment. So it's really only a very small handful of species. The other test that we're going to do, because it is a little bit harder to see this when we're not in person, when we're over Zoom, is we're going to do the alcohol test. So we're going to take a small drop of alcohol, drop it onto the butterfly's wings, and we're going to see it's going to compress the scales so the light can't come in. And look at that, the blue is gone. It almost looks black. It's a little bit of a greener tint in person, but what has happened is that alcohol has compressed the scales so the light cannot come in and give us that beautiful blue color. So crazy, right? So now we're going to meet one animal that's also a butterfly that actually does make blue pigment. So Liz is going to show us our olive wing butterfly. Again, this butterfly did used to live here at the museum. They only live for about 2 weeks, and so we reuse them for education. So this blue that you are seeing is a true blue. That's the real blue pigment. We can put light, we can put alcohol, we can put all sorts of things. It's going to stay blue. So before we meet our next special friend, I want to turn it over and see if we have any questions about butterflies, about blue in nature, about the science behind this.
Yes, we do. All right. Allison, age 8, wants to know, how long is the butterfly's lifespan?
That is such a great question. So butterflies on average, their entire lifespan, so from when they're an egg to when they're an adult butterfly, is about 2 to 3 months. This does change. Some species live longer, some live shorter, but on average, we say 2 to 3 months. And again, as an adult butterfly, they live about 2 weeks on average. Again, some do live longer and some do live shorter.
All right, Emmy and Hensley, age 7, want to know, how long does it take to turn from a caterpillar to a butterfly?
That is also a good question. So from a caterpillar to a butterfly, again, it really depends on the species, but we like to say on average about 3 weeks. Moths are a little bit different. Some moths can live in their cocoon for over a year, which is crazy, because then when those moths come out of their cocoon, you might think, well, if it was in there for a year, it's going to live really long, and they only live 5 days as an adult. And that's wild.
Julia, age 8, wants to know, is it possible to tell the gender?
That is a wonderful question, and it is. It's a little tricky with our common Morpho butterflies, but if you look at the edge of the wing, that black part and the red dots around it, which are very, very hard to see, you can tell the difference between the males and the females. I believe this one is a female by the width of the black and the red markings. But again, it is difficult. And with a lot of butterflies, similar to birds, you have to open up the animal itself to see the sex. So obviously when these guys are alive, we are not doing that here at the museum. We're letting them live their full lives.
Mason, age 11, wants to know, do they have the blue for camouflage?
That is such a wonderful question. So for a lot of animals that are blue, again, because it's not a color that naturally occurs in nature, it's kind of a startle. So for our common Morpho butterfly here, imagine you are in this beautiful tropical rainforest and you're a predator and you're moving through, and all of a sudden you are going after this butterfly that on the other side is brown. So Liz, if you wouldn't mind actually flipping the butterfly all the way over and we can see the brown on the other side, you can actually just do the whole Petri tray. Awesome. So this is the other color. When that morpho opens its bright blue wings, it's very startling. Because again, it's also very like metallic-y looking. So how the light is hitting the wings changes the blue. So sometimes it can be really light blue, sometimes it can be really dark blue, depending on how the light is hitting it. So that's one reason. It also is a big warning color. It is saying, hey, I don't taste good. Maybe I'm mimicking something that doesn't taste good, or I'm poisonous. So those are kind of all the reasons that animals would use that blue. That was a great question.
Una wants to know, when the alcohol dries, will the wing look blue again?
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing question. Yes, it will. It will look blue again, because once those scales dry, they go back to they have the same exact shape that they did before. And the shape, similar to a prism, is what causes that blue color.
All right, I think our last question for this animal, Lisa, age 10, wants to know, is the black outline actually black?
Wonderful question. It is actually black. So with a lot of pigments in nature, it is that actual color. Blue is the really special one that is not a natural color. So if you have blue eyes, guess what? That's not actually blue pigment. It is how the light is hitting your eyes that is making that beautiful blue color. It is not pigment, which is crazy to think.
All right, well, I am going to share some more facts about this animal. So hopefully this answered some of the unanswered questions we had in the chat. So again, here's more about the location, food, lifespan, and cool facts, and the name of the butterfly again, which I think we had some questions about that in the chat.
Awesome, Sarah. And I think we are ready for our final special animal.
All right.
So this animal is really cool. It is a blue poison dart frog. And a lot of you may have already seen this animal before, but what makes this animal so special and different than the last two animals we saw is poison dart frogs are a true blue animal. They have blue pigment in their skin that gives them this blue color. Now, I do want to preface this, that there are contradicting reports on this. Some people don't classify them as a true blue animal, and some scientists do. So again, there's just still so much for us to learn about color. And who would have guessed? Like, we think we know red, green, blue, like we got it, we got colors, but there's still so much for us to learn. So this frog, we are going to go with today that it does have the true blue pigment. That's kind of what I've read and what I believe the research shows. So poison dart frogs are really cool. And you may know a little bit about them, in that kind of one of those main things is that they are poisonous. So these guys, they actually get that from the food they eat in the wild. So here in captivity, they do not, when they do not get food that gives them that poison. So they are not toxic here at the museum. Poison dart frogs live for about 5 to 7 years, and there are about 150 species. These guys live in Central and South America. And again, what makes these guys so cool, it is that it is not light hitting their skin, bouncing off, that's making the color. It is the actual pigment. They are actually blue, which is super, super cool. So since we only have a little bit of time left, I'll just turn it over to questions. So we can just dive right in, because poison dart frogs are super cool.
Yeah, so Jackson, age 9, wants to know, does it still have poison in it?
Great question. So it does not. These guys here at the museum get 2 different species of fruit fly, and they get little tiny crickets. So they get a mixture of those. And since they are not eating the animal that makes them poisonous in the wild, which I believe is an ant, is a species of ant, they do not have that poison. They've tried replicating it in captivity, of giving them the animal that causes them to be poisonous, and it's just not the same toxicity for some reason. It just doesn't transfer over the same, which is again a really interesting question as to why.
Mirla B wants to know, are those really black spots? And Emmy and Hensley, age 7, wants to know, are the frogs dots for camouflage?
Great question. So yes, those are really black spots. They do kind of have a tint of blue to them. And again, so this one is blue. Like most poison dart frogs are really bright colors, and that is to let their predators know, hey, I am not going to taste good. I'm going to make you sick, so you do not want to eat me. So that is his camouflage.
Alexandra, age 7, wants to know, what habitat do they live in?
That's a great question. So these guys live in tropical rainforest and they live on the forest floor. So some things that are really important to poison dart frogs are high humidity. So these guys need almost 100% humidity 100% of the time. So they like their habitat to be really, really moist. So as you can see, there's moss in here with our poison dart frog that's helping keep that humidity. Because like Liz mentioned with our blue jay, this is not our poison dart frog's home. This is just his container that when he comes to do programs that he comes out in. So we put a little bit moss in there to keep him nice and hydrated.
Patty wants to know, what's the difference between toxic and poison?
That's a great question. So toxic is kind of the overarching word that we would use. And then we'd break the toxic down into venomous and poisonous. So poison just kind of falls under the overarching toxic word that we use. So that's kind of how those two relate. So you can interchange toxic and poison, just like you could interchange toxic and venomous, but you cannot interchange venomous and poisonous. Those things are completely different.
Elena, age 8, wants to know, are these frogs prey or predator?
Ooh, wonderful question. These guys are actually both. So not a lot of animals like to eat these guys because, again, they don't taste very good. But these guys are carnivores. So like I said before, in captivity here, we give them different species of fruit fly and little pinhead crickets. And again, this is because the same in the wild, they're not just eating one type of animal. They're not just eating one type of food. They're going to be eating multiple. So we want to make sure that our animals here at the museum are getting a big variety in their food, but these guys are carnivores. Or they're insectivores, I should say.
Maddie wants to know, how can you tell their gender?
That's a wonderful question. It's really, really, really hard with poison dart frogs. Again, it depends on the species. With the blue poison dart frog, I believe you look at the size of the animal. But again, kind of like what Liz said about our blue jay, you can have a female that's, really large or a male that's really small or vice versa. So it can be difficult. But I don't know of another way to tell this species of poison dart frog apart.
All right, so we have a ton of questions left, but I'll ask this one last question. Vivian, age 9, wants to know, what is his name and age?
So this poison dart frog's name is Azul, and I believe Liz might actually know his age a little bit better. I believe he's 5, 6. Yeah, he's 5 or 6 years old. We have another poison dart frog as well, so sometimes I confuse their birthdays.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We are out of time for today, so wave goodbye. And I will share some more facts about our poison dart frog, so you can learn a little bit more about the location, food, lifespan, and cool facts. Feel free to take a picture or screenshot of this to learn a little bit more. So thank you everyone today. We had a ton of questions today and I was not able to get to all of them at all. So thank you for being great at observing and asking questions. If you would like to support the museum, if you enjoyed today's presentation, you can head to engage.mos.org/welcome. And if you want to see all of our virtual offerings, go to mos.org/mos@home. So thank you everyone. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend and I will see you all soon.